the sentence, "and the bush was not consumed," I've been thinking a lot about that lately. It gives me hope. In these fiery times, it gives me hope. That's just an aside. So our story today is the story of Moses, Moses' call from God. We've skipped a little bit into our stories. We skipped over poor Joseph, and all of us love the stories of Joseph, right? So we don't know how the Israelites got to Egypt. We all know the story of Joseph. But the Pharaoh has changed, and the Pharaoh has decided that all of these workers are getting a little too uppity, honestly. They're growing in numbers, and he's afraid of them. And so he keeps knocking them down. He kills their children. He tries to stop them from growing. And Moses actually is thrown out of the country because he kills a guard on one of the work sites. And I wonder if that's why God sent a bush to Moses to say, Moses, there's another way to this. There's another way. But I hear your pain. So God places a burning bush in Moses' path. And I have some advice for all of us. We should be looking for the bushes. We really should be looking for the burning bushes that God's sending to us. When God places a burning bush in your path, wakes you up from your daily routine, I have one piece of advice. Follow love. Here I am. Show me my call, dear God. There is a call out there for each of you and for us as a community. God is calling us to act in this world. Now, thankfully, we will probably not need to negotiate with a Pharaoh and guide people through a desert of 40 years. But nowadays, I don't know, maybe that's going to be the call, y'all. But there is a burning bush moment for each of us. Turn aside and look. Have a little conversation with God. I am so grateful that we have a moment today to listen to Maricel's moment with the burning bush. Right? Your burning bush moment when you went and visited Cuba. And I am even more grateful that this congregation is coming together to support her journey of love. It is not often that we have an opportunity to help people very far away from us and yet have a personal connection, have an opportunity to have this moment of connection and togetherness. I hope this is just the beginning of us supporting each other's passions, our journeys with God and love, helping each other to see God in our lives, helping each other to stop and consider that what God is calling us to do. So, Maricel, we thank you for your witness, for your vulnerability, and for your joys and your concerns that you share with us this morning. And I welcome you to take this pulpit.
Thank you, Pastor Fran, for your wonderful words and for giving me this opportunity to tell my story. So my name is Maricel Lucero. I was born in Santiago de Cuba in August 1958. My parents, Blanca Nubo and Oscar Lucero, were college students when they joined the Cuban Revolution. They played significant roles in various revolutionary activities that contributed to the eventual overthrow of the dictator Fulgencio Batista in January 1959. My father never saw the revolution triumph. In April 1958, Batista's officers captured and killed him just 4 months before I was born. I never had a chance to know him. But as a schoolgirl, I learned about his heroism in my Cuban history books. Today, he is known as the Martyr of Silence because he refused to reveal the names of the rebels when he was captured. Several schools and universities across the island are named in his honor. My father and his comrades fought and gave their lives to liberate Cuba from the oppressive Batista regime. They believed that Fidel Castro would lead Cuba into a bright future of equality for all people. Unfortunately, the outcome of the revolution was not what they dreamed it would be. Castro succeeded in some of his goals, such as expanding education and medical care to all Cubans. However, the new government quickly became as repressive as Batista's, turning into a military state that limited basic freedoms to its citizens. My family was deeply disappointed with the new government that they had initially supported. This led them to make the difficult decision to leave Cuba. I immigrated to the US with my mother, stepfather, and baby brother in 1968 at the age of 10, leaving behind a significant part of my extended family. My mother carries deep pain surrounding the loss of my father and her homeland. To shelter me from her grief, she never spoke about her life in Cuba. And to this day, she refuses to visit the island. Despite her feelings, I always yearned to return to the place of my birth and craved to learn more about my father. After nearly 30 years, I finally made my first trip back to my homeland, and it was an emotional experience, to say the least. I reconnected with my Cuban family, who shared heartwarming stories about my father as a young boy. I learned that he loved to play practical jokes on his 10 brothers and sisters and enjoyed singing in the church choir. They also recounted my parents' passionate yet tragic love story, which left my mother a widow at the age of 21, pregnant with me. I met some of my father's friends who fought with him in the revolution. They shared amazing stories about the courageous acts that he undertook while trying to overthrow Batista. During this trip, I also learned about the economic hardships faced by the Cuban people since the revolution. These hardships are partly due to the US embargo, which has been in place since 1962, as well as the Cuban government's mismanagement of resources within the country. In an effort to improve US-Cuba relations, President Barack Obama eased restrictions for Americans to travel to Cuba. However, he was not successful in lifting the embargo. When I returned to the US, I decided to dedicate my efforts to helping my Cuban family and their community. At the time, I was living in Vermont, working as a music teacher and the director of a women's community chorus. It occurred to me that if I could convince the chorus to accompany me on my next trip to Cuba, we could participate in the yearly International Choral Festival in Santiago and bring substantial amount of aid. I presented the idea to the women in the chorus, and they readily agreed to come along. At first, the notion of a large-scale humanitarian trip to Cuba seemed like an insurmountable task, but the women in the chorus rallied to make it a reality. Over the next several months, we organized dinners, garage sales, and special concerts to raise money for the trip. Local churches and organizations donated medicines, clothing, shoes, and toiletries for us to bring to the Cuban people. When the day of the trip arrived, we were 70 travelers, consisting of 30 chorus members and their families, carrying over 3,000 pounds of aid. Yeah. Amazing. Upon our arrival in Cuba, the aid was donated and distributed through the Second Baptist Church of Santiago to its congregation and wider community. During our one-week visit, we participated in projects such as painting the church, which was badly in need of repair, and attended bilingual church services. As part of the International Choral Festival, we sang in beautiful venues across the city alongside groups from around the world. Ours was the only American chorus. Everywhere we went, people welcomed us warmly, and we built lasting friendships, especially with the Cuban singers and musicians. This first humanitarian trip was such a huge success that we decided to make it a biannual event. For several years, the chorus continued to make the journey to Santiago, participating in choral festivals and bringing as much aid as we could carry. In 2013, I moved to Northampton, Massachusetts. I no longer had a connection with the Vermont Women's Chorus, but became part of the salsa dancing community in Northampton. Soon, I resumed my humanitarian trips to Cuba, this time accompanied by my salsa friends. During our salsa trips, we hired professional Cuban dance instructors and learned to dance salsa, son, and rumba from the very best. We continued to bring aid and support to the community for several more years. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic forced me to pause my trips to Cuba. The country closed its doors to tourism for several years, which severely impacted its economy. To make matters worse, the main power plant in Cuba broke down last fall, resulting in widespread power outages across the island for several weeks. Since then, electricity has been rationed, and families can expect to have power for only a few hours each day. Food and water are also rationed. Currently, Cuba is experiencing its worst economic depression since the revolution, and the people are struggling to survive. My friend Eric, a musician in Santiago, has shared the severity of the economic crises. He's unable to find food, fuel, and other necessities for his family. My cousins in Havana have shared similar stories of empty grocery stores and deteriorating conditions in their homes. Seeing my friends and family in this desperate situation led me to reach out to the Faith in Action Committee at UCCB and ask for help. Their swift and generous response allowed me to send food packages to my Cuban family for several months, a kindness for which I will forever be grateful. To extend this generosity to more Cubans in need, the church has come together to organize a benefit concert right here at UCCB on October 25th, featuring the Boston-based band Sol y Canto, an award-winning pan-Latin ensemble led by Puerto Rican-Argentine singer and percussionist Rosy Amador, and New Mexican guitarist, singer, and composer Brian Amador. Sol y Canto is known for making their music accessible to both Spanish and non-Spanish speaking audiences of all ages. Their mission is to create music and performances that, quote, move, delight, excite, and connect the audience to the richness of Latin American culture, close quote. I first met Sol y Canto in the early 1990s while living in Vermont. Recently, I reconnected with them at a concert in New Hampshire and was profoundly moved by the joy they bring to their music and their strong message for a better world. During the concert, I danced, laughed, cried, and sang along to their beautiful songs, which brought back sweet memories of my first home. When considering which band to hire for the benefit concert, Sol y Canto immediately came to mind as the perfect choice. We invite you all to join us in this very special evening to share the joy and energy that Sol y Canto can bring. All proceeds from the event will be used to purchase food for the congregation of the Second Baptist Church of Santiago and neighboring communities. Please help us spread the word and bring your friends to the concert. There's much more about the history, music, and culture of Cuba that I couldn't include in this talk. But I will be available in the gathering room after the service if you have questions or would like to hear more about Cuba. We've created a video with photos of my family and my trips to Cuba for your viewing pleasure. If you'd like, you can also pick up one of my Cuban music CDs to bring a little piece of Cuba with you home today. All the money from the CD sales will go to our Cuba fund. There is also a Cuba-themed basket full of goodies that will be raffled at the concert. So you can see Peter after the service to buy a raffle today. Since my friend Todd Waddington first introduced me to UCCB, I have been impressed and inspired by the church's mission to welcome all people and truly help those in need. I'm grateful to be part of a community that understands and celebrates diversity on a local and international level. I hope that this benefit concert will allow the Cuban people to experience the incredible open-heartedness that I have felt in this space. My vision for the future is that U.S.-Cuba relations are normalized, allowing us to support our neighbors and enjoy the island's vibrant culture and breathtaking beauty together. Let us stand beside the Cuban people as they courageously face their challenges and bring hope to them in return. Thank you so much for your attention. Muchas gracias.